Hello and welcome to The Perspective on NTV World. I am Sapika Shrestha. From major headlines to the issues behind them, we break down the top stories and explore how they are shaping the path forward. This week's episode includes Nepal's budget session officially begins this week as the government prepares to unveil a nearly 1.9 trillion rupees budget amid slowing economic growth, weak capital spending and rising pressure to create jobs at home. We discuss the government's key budget priorities, concerns over poor implementation efforts to revive private sector confidence, and the growing number of young Nepalis leaving the country for foreign employment. We also look at the government's newly launched digital suggestion collection portal and whether greater public participation can truly make the budget process more transparent and effective. Stay with us for these stories and more. The budget session of Nepal's federal parliament has kicked off, marking the start of the new parliamentary year with the government's policy and program presentation. President Ramchandra Poudel addressed the joint sitting of both the House of Representatives and the National Assembly Monday, in line with Article 95 of the Constitution of Nepal. Both the houses met separately with agendas including announcements related to the session, convening information on recent cabinet reshuffle and procedural matters such as presiding arrangements and rule approvals. The government is expected to table the 8 ordinances, including amendments related to public procurement and the Constitutional Council, which will be presented in both houses for consideration. During the joint sitting, President Ramchandra Poudel presented the government's policy and program for the upcoming fiscal year. The Council of Ministers early on Monday endorsed the policy and programs. With the weight of expectations on the nearly two-thirds majority government, the policy and programs are likely to revolve around the 100-point commitment paper of the RSP government. The presentation comes in accordance with Article 95 of the Constitution of Nepal. The policy and programs outline the government's major priorities, plans and areas of focus before the annual budget is introduced. The address by President formally launches parliamentary discussions related to national policies and development priorities for the next fiscal cycle. As Nepal is preparing to unveil a budget worthy nearly 1.9 trillion rupees for the upcoming fiscal year, the newly elected government faces mounting pressure to revive a slowing economy, boost private sector confidence, and create jobs for thousands of young people leaving the country for foreign employment each year. Economists say the upcoming budget will be critical in determining whether Nepal can accelerate development and restore economic momentum after years of weak capital spending and sluggish market activity. Here's a report.
Nepal government is currently finalizing the national budget for fiscal year 2026-27 at a time when Nepal's economy continues to struggle with slow growth, weak consumer demand and low investment confidence. Experts say one of the country's biggest economic challenges remains poor capital expenditure. Development spending by the government has remained consistently low in recent years, delaying infrastructure projects and slowing economic activity across multiple sectors. At the same time, declining purchasing power among consumers has weakened market activity, while many businesses continue to hold back investment despite sufficient liquidity in the banking sector. Economists warn that the lack of economic opportunities at home has also contributed to the continued outflow of young Nepalis seeking employment abroad, raising concerns about long-term productivity and the country's ability to mobilize domestic resources effectively. The new government, led by the Rashtriya Swatantra Party RSP, which secured a near two-thirds majority in the March parliamentary elections, is now under pressure to deliver a budget that directly addresses public expectations, particularly among young voters seeking employment and economic stability. Former Vice Chairperson of the National Planning Commission, Govinda Pokhrel, says the budget should focus more on development and production rather than short-term distribution programs.
वैदेशिक मुद्रा आर्जन गर्ने र रोजगारी सिर्जना गर्ने एउटा आईटी हो, पर्यटन हो र एउटा निर्यात हो। त्यो क्षेत्रमा उहाँहरूले कसरी एउटा टार्गेटेड त्यसरी जानु पर्यो। अब कृषि क्षेत्रमा उहाँहरूले दिने सुविधाको लागि फोकस गर्नु पर्यो, तर मान्छेको क्षमता बढाउनु पर्यो। मान्छेसँग खेत छ, बारी छ, उत्पादन हुने ठाउँ छ, तर उसँग त्यसलाई सदुपयोग गरेर आफूलाई अब एउटा मर्यादित आम्दानी हुने खालको क्षमता छैन कि टमाटर उत्पादन गर्छ, त्यो टमाटर कुहिएर जान्छ, उसले चाहिँ बजारीकरण गर्न सक्दैन कि। त्यसकारणले जुन सप्लाई साइड भन्छौँ, किसानले अथवा अरू कुनै पनि उद्यमीले पाउनुपर्ने सुविधा चाहिँ सरकारले उपलब्ध गराइदिनु पर्यो र उहाँहरूको क्षमतै विकास गर्नु पर्यो। बजारीकरण कसरी गर्ने, त्यसलाई आफ्नो व्यक्तिगत आय कसरी बढाउने, ऋण कसरी लिने, लगानीको सुरक्षित कसरी गर्ने, यो सबै चिज जबसम्म सिकाइदैनौँ, सरकारले अनुदान मात्रै पेलेर पनि कुनै उपलब्धि नभएको हामीले चाहिँ देखेका छौँ।
Pokhral says priority should be given to sectors that can strengthen Nepal's domestic economy, including energy exports, information technology, and infrastructure development. He also says the government should focus on completing unfinished large-scale projects and restoring confidence in the private sector to encourage greater investment. Experts say although banks currently hold investable funds, businesses remain hesitant to expand due to uncertainty in the economy and weak market demand. Economists are also urging the government to introduce employment-focused policies and provide special support for small and medium-sized enterprises, which are considered key drivers of job creation and economic recovery.
युवा लक्षित कार्यक्रमहरूलाई चाहिँ बढी फोकस गर्नुपर्छ। क्वालिटेटिभ एजुकेसन जहाँ चाहिँ स्किल अनि त्यस पछाडि चाहिँ उनीहरूलाई ट्रेनिङ र कामले चाहिँ उत्पादन र रोजगारीमा पनि साथ दिन सकोस्। अहिले नेपाली अर्थतन्त्र अत्यन्तै शिथिल अवस्थामा छ, जहाँ चाहिँ हामी गरिबी, महँगी र बेरोजगारको चाहिँ चरम मार खेपिरहेका छौँ। यो कुरालाई चाहिँ सरकारले तत्कालै एड्रेस गर्नुपर्छ।
Analysts say citizens are now expecting tangible relief and visible development outcomes rather than policy promises alone. They argue that the upcoming budget will be closely watched as a test of the government's ability to translate its strong electoral mandate into economic results. The government is expected to make public the budget, with total spending projected to exceed 1,890 billion Nepali rupees.
We explored more on the priorities and possible impacts of the upcoming budget with development economist Bhojraj Poudel through this virtual conversation. Welcome to NTV World, sir.
Thank you very much, Sabika ji.
As Nepal is preparing to unveil a budget for the upcoming fiscal year, how realistic will be the ceiling of nearly 1.9 trillion rupees given by the National Planning Commission amid a slowing economy? What should be the government's top priority this fiscal year?
The ceiling in itself makes sense, but what should be the priority and then where should be the focus of the government is the key question. I think first and foremost, there are critical infrastructures that are already underway to be developed. They have to be prioritized and completed on time. The second is government has to come out with maximizing the resources, including the infrastructures that we have. For instance, Nepal right now has 3 international airports, Pokhara, Gautam Buddha, and Tirupati International Airport. Government should come up with ways of leveraging these 3 hubs with international airports. Then it comes to incentivizing the private sector to directly participate and creating wealth to push the reform agenda. Without the participation of the private sector, any reform agenda is going to be meaningless. That's where the government really should think about how it can actually win the confidence of the private sector and then implement the policies in partnership with the private sector. That said, the government really has to work on and come up with innovative ways of operationalizing public-private partnership modality, which is in very much limbo for last 1 decade, even from the very much point of establishing Investment Board of Nepal.
So how confident are you that the budget will not have to be revised midway due to lackluster development expenditure spending?
Governments should start working on from day one. I mean, we bring budget, but then the implementation process gets very much delayed. It gets into inter-agency coordination capability and then the mechanism. There is really no established mechanism where the interagency coordination becomes very successful, because every project requires high level of coordination among the government agencies, including ministries. That's where the government should come up with the ways of enhancing the coordination, cooperation, and then only funding or allocating resources and financial resources for the project that are ready to kick off. The government has to leverage the existing resources, existing infrastructures that we have. And the third one is in terms of expenditure, increasing capital expenditure. The first important task is not about anything else. It's rather the interagency coordination and very fast coordination, which, I mean, 1 year is a very short time. And then we reach to next quarter and then third quarter, and then things start already too late to kick off. That's why early on, government should come up with budget implementation plan that is convinced and can be complied by all the stakeholders, including federal ministries, provincial governments, and the local governments.
Mr. Poudel, capital expenditure and budget implementation have remained weak for years. Why has Nepal consistently struggled to translate budgets into actual development?
There are very higher level, our procurement policies, this and that, but I hope the government will come up with a very much solvable challenges or the problems that are holding the expenditure issue, right? That's where the current government, given the expertise that our leadership has in terms of, even look at the Finance Ministry, National Planning Commission, National Nepal Rashtra Bank, all of them have solid leadership in terms of technical understanding of the economy, and then the theoretical understanding of how a budget should be, what kind of policies there should be. The only issue of implementation, that's where we should bring down the larger, narrative of, the budget capital expenditure is not happening because of this, larger policies. We know that. What we don't know is what kind of smaller problems are coming together to block the road for implementation. That's where the Ministry of Finance really has to work with the other line ministries in terms of implementation.
Sir, thousands of young Nepalis continue leaving for foreign employment every year. So what concrete policies should the budget introduce to create job opportunities at home?
Well, I think that's a long shot. How we can create jobs in the country. First, the budget has to give the confidence to the private sector. Second, after that confidence, the private sector should actually find space and areas to engage and invest. Third, there has to be demand being increased at the domestic level, right? For that, the government has to give space and make individuals, consumers, have more and more disposable income. For that, the government really has to work in terms of finding ways to formalizing the economy. That's where everybody in the informal sector also feels secure about spending whatever the income they have. Without that, there would be no jobs. Without jobs, young people would be always looking for going abroad. But at the same time, the people leaving country is not only for jobs, because there are jobs and opportunities in the informal sector. The only thing is how reliable they are, what kind of compensation plan that the government has, and how we are monitoring the private sector and helping them to create more jobs. And where is the focus for investment? Which areas should we focus for investment? Right. That's if we invest in one sector in silos, then it may not able to create jobs across the economy. That's why there has to be a balanced approach in terms of investment in the energy sector, investment in the manufacturing sector, investment in the digital sector, investment in tourism sector. So all these sectors that Nepal has potential should get some sort of incentive or confidence from the government that they can really move forward without hesitating about losing their business in next quarter or the quarter following. So the kind of policy predictability the government has to give, in which the government should give the policies in a larger framework.
Lastly, Mr. Poudel, the government has launched a public suggestion collection portal for the budget process. Can initiatives like this genuinely improve policy making and public trust?
Feedback collection loop normally in a budget cycle is done through Ministry of Finance. But we have seen this from the Prime Minister's office, right? That may give an impression to the larger people and the private sector that is that a sign that there is no communication between Ministry of Finance and the Prime Minister's office? And private sector normally takes Ministry of Finance as first line of conversation. And if in that case, if the Prime Minister's office is soliciting feedback from the people in terms of fiscal budget, then there would be question, who should they be talking to, whether to Prime Minister's office or the Ministry of Finance? So that kind of confusion may be there, but I would say in essence, such an attempt is well appreciated. And it should improve the budget making process. But this is because in a parliamentary system, also the budget session of the parliament should be long enough where every member of the parliament should get time to deliver and discuss the merits of each clause of the budget or whatever they want to bring, right? That's where probably we have to wait and see how the session goes. What kind of deliberations do we see? What kind of questions do we see? How parliamentarians would discuss on the budget and the policies? That's still, we have to wait and see, Savikaji.
Thank you for your time and insights, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was economist Bhojraj Poudel on the priorities and possible impacts of the upcoming budget. Now, as economists and citizens alike demand stronger economic policies, Nepal's government is also attempting to make the budget process more participatory through a newly launched digital platform. Nepal's Office of the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers has come up with a new digital suggestion collection portal aimed at increasing public participation in the country's policy, program and budget-making process for the upcoming fiscal year. The platform allows Nepali citizens, policy experts and members of the diaspora living abroad to directly submit recommendations on development priorities and government spending plans. Officials say the initiative is part of an effort to make governance more transparent, inclusive and people-centered by incorporating public concerns into national policy making. The Prime Minister's Secretariat says the portal is intended to reduce the gap between citizens and the state and ensure that government decisions are not limited to bureaucratic circles alone. The system also includes a suggestion tracking feature allowing users to monitor the status of their submissions and see whether their recommendations are being reviewed or implemented by the government. That's all from the perspective for this week. We will be back with more updates next week. Stay tuned to NTV World.